The chandeliers at Le Mirabelle glowed like captured stars, casting their soft light over the polished marble floors. It was the kind of place where people whispered in money instead of words. Waiters moved like ghosts in black and white uniforms, and the air smelled faintly of truffle butter and arrogance. Clara Evans adjusted the hem of her faded black apron and forced the professional smile she'd perfected over 3 years of serving people who never saw her. Her sneakers pinched, her feet throbbed, but her rent depended on every polite nod. "Table 9, her manager whispered sharply. "Be careful, that's Alexander Grant." The name meant nothing to her. Another billionaire, another man who'd never washed his own dishes. She smoothed her hair, grabbed a tray, and stepped toward the corner table. Alexander Grant didn't look up. His suit was midnight blue, tailored like it was stitched directly onto him. His cufflinks shimmered discreetly. Old money subtlety. A phone rested beside his untouched glass of wine, its screen lighting up every few seconds. "Good evening, sir," Clara said gently. "Would you like to hear tonight's specials?" He gave a slight frown, the kind that made people apologize before realizing they hadn't done anything wrong. "No, just bring me the filet mignon, medium rare, and make sure it's actually medium rare this time." "Yes, sir," she murmured. The rest of the service went quietly enough until she tripped over a chair leg while clearing his dessert plate. Her small, worn wallet slipped from her apron pocket and hit the marble with a soft slap. Everything inside scattered, receipts, coins, and a few old photographs worn at the edges. Alexander's gaze dropped. He leaned down before she could stop him, lifting one of the pictures between 2 fingers. It was a faded Polaroid. Clara, maybe 6 years old, sitting in her mother's lap in front of a run-down house, both smiling. His lips twitched. Then came the low chuckle. "You actually carry these around?" he asked. "What is this, the 90s? You know you can store photos on your phone, right?" Heat rushed to Clara's face. "They're personal," she said quietly, snatching the photo back. He smiled without warmth. "Of course they are. I suppose nostalgia's all you've got when the present isn't much to look at." A few diners nearby turned at the sound of his amused tone. Her throat tightened, but she swallowed her pride and bent to gather the rest of her things. The wallet snapped shut, her fingers trembling. "I'll bring your check," she whispered. As she turned, he caught sight of something tucked behind the clear ID sleeve, a different photo, just barely visible. For a split second, his mocking expression faltered. It was the corner of another Polaroid, older, yellowed with time. A woman's smiling face, familiar somehow. Her hair fell in soft waves, and in the blurred corner of the frame, 2 letters were visible, written in ink. A.G. Alexander's breath caught, but he covered it with a quick sip of wine. Clara didn't notice. She was already retreating toward the kitchen, her heart pounding from humiliation. From across the room, he kept staring at that wallet in her hand, something sharp and buried stirring behind his calm mask. He didn't know it yet, but that picture, hidden in her wallet, was about to unravel everything he thought he knew about his past, his family, and the woman he'd spent half his life searching for. And tonight, the man who laughed would soon be the one begging for the truth. The rain that night hit the windows of Clara's apartment like a tired drumbeat. It was a 1-room walk-up above a laundromat that never closed, the kind of place where the smell of detergent mixed with city dust. She sat on the edge of her narrow bed, still wearing her uniform. Her hands trembled as she opened the worn brown wallet lying beside her. Inside, the same old photos stared back, her mother holding her as a baby, the peeling porch of their old house, and the one picture she never showed anyone, the one Alexander Grant almost saw. Clara lifted it carefully. It was small, creased, but still clear enough to see her mother's face, young, radiant, eyes full of mischief. On the back, faded ink spelled out a short message. "Always remember the promise, A.G." Her thumb brushed the letters. She had always assumed A.G. was some old friend of her mother's. Maybe a lost love. Maybe a relative. She never asked. There were so many questions her mother took to the grave. When she was 10, the hospital had called late one night. Pneumonia. By the time Clara arrived, her mother was already gone. She remembered clutching that photo as they packed her mother's few belongings: a sweater, a silver locket, the wallet that became her only keepsake. Now, years later, that same photo felt heavier than ever. She whispered softly, "Who were you, Mum? And who was he?" The memory of Alexander's laugh burned behind her eyes. The way his mouth had curved, dismissive and cruel. But something about the way he froze when he saw that last photo, it gnawed at her. There had been a flicker of recognition, like a spark behind glass. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from her manager. "Don't come in tomorrow. We'll call you if we need you." That was code for "you're done." Clara let the phone fall onto the blanket. She stared at the ceiling, fighting the familiar lump in her throat. Rent was due in 4 days. The electricity bill, stacked on her dresser, was already stamped in red. She leaned back, clutching the photo to her chest. "You'd know what to do, Mom," she whispered. "You always did." Her gaze drifted to the window. Across the street, the neon sign from the laundromat flickered, half the letters dead, the rest humming faintly. Open all night. The city was alive and uncaring, just like that restaurant, just like the man who'd laughed at her life. But she couldn't shake the image of his eyes when he saw the edge of that photo. That flash of recognition. Fear, even. It wasn't the reaction of a man amused. It was the reaction of a man who'd just seen a ghost. She picked up her mother's old silver locket from the nightstand and opened it. Inside was a tiny picture, almost identical to the one in her wallet, just cropped tighter, her mother's smile, and the faint trace of someone's shoulder next to her, just barely visible. "Was that you, A.G.?" she murmured. "Were you the one who made her smile like that?" The power flickered once, then steadied. The rain grew louder. Clara tucked the photo back into her wallet and set it on the bedside table. Tomorrow, she told herself, she'd go to the hospital archives. Maybe there was something, anything, left of her mother's records. As she lay down, the lights from passing cars painted shifting stripes across her ceiling, like waves of memory refusing to rest. And somewhere across the city, Alexander Grant sat in his penthouse, staring at a photo that looked exactly the same. Alexander Grant's penthouse looked like a museum designed by a man who didn't believe in warmth. The walls were steel and glass, reflecting the city skyline like a blade. At midnight, the view stretched endlessly, Manhattan glittering like a circuit board. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a tumbler of scotch in his hand, watching the rain trace ghostly paths down the glass. On the marble coffee table lay a single photograph. It was old, its corners frayed, the colors fading, but the woman in it still seemed to laugh through time. Anna. Her hair had been chestnut brown, her smile crooked on one side, as if she'd been caught mid-breath. Alexander's jaw tightened. He traced the outline of her face with his thumb. 24 years, he whispered, and I still can't bury you. He sank into the leather chair beside the window, running a hand through his graying hair. The night outside felt too quiet. That waitress's voice, soft, nervous, echoed in his mind. Her eyes, the way she'd flinched under his laughter. There had been something hauntingly familiar about her. He closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. "You're imagining it," he muttered. "She's no one. Just a girl with old photos." But then came the image that refused to leave, the edge of that last picture inside her wallet, the faint blur of a woman's face, the initials, A.G., written in the same shaky hand he'd seen countless times before. He stood abruptly, knocking over the glass. The amber liquid spread across the table like a stain of guilt. He walked to the bookshelf and pulled down a locked silver box. His hands shook slightly as he entered the code. Inside were stacks of yellowed letters, neatly tied with a faded ribbon. The top one bore a single word, Anna. He untied the ribbon and opened the first letter. Alex, if you ever find this, please know I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because your family gave me no choice. They said you'd lose everything if I stayed. I wanted to protect you, even if it meant breaking both our hearts. His throat tightened. He'd read the letters 100 times, but they still cut the same way. His father had told him Anna had died in an accident 2 months after she left. He'd believed it. For years he'd believed it. But what if she hadn't died? What if she'd simply disappeared? With a reason. He sank back into the chair, pressing the photo to his chest. Could that girl... His phone buzzed on the table. It was his assistant, Jonah. Sir, sorry for calling this late, Jonah said. You asked me to look into someone. Clara Evans, the waitress from Le Mirabelle. Alexander straightened. And? She's 24, lives in Queens. No record of her father. Mother deceased, name's Laura Evans. Worked as a nurse until she passed away about 14 years ago. Alexander's pulse quickened. Laura Evans, he repeated. The name meant nothing, yet his gut twisted. Anything else? Jonah hesitated. Only that her mother's maiden name was Anna Collins. The room tilted. Alexander's hand went cold around the phone. Say that again. Anna Collins, sir. Do you want me to keep digging? Alexander didn't answer. His reflection in the window looked like a ghost, pale, haunted. No, he finally said, voice breaking. That's enough. When the call ended, he stared at the photo again. Anna Collins. She'd changed her name. Of course she had. He pressed the picture against his forehead and let out a shaky laugh that turned into something closer to a sob. God. She wasn't dead, he whispered. She was alive. She had a daughter. And the girl I humiliated tonight. She might be mine. Morning sunlight cut through the blinds of Clara's apartment like thin blades slicing across the room. She hadn't slept. The photo of her mother still lay on the nightstand, the same faded smile staring up at her. Her eyes were red, not from tears, but from the constant, restless turning of her thoughts. She got up, pulled on her jacket, and tucked the old photograph safely into her wallet. She had made up her mind. The hospital where her mother died was only 2 subway rides away. Maybe they still had records. Maybe someone remembered her. When she stepped outside, the city was just waking up. Vendors were rolling up steel shutters, steam rose from manhole covers, and car horns started their morning symphony. She stopped by a cafe to grab the cheapest coffee on the menu, 1 sugar, no cream, and tried to shake the cold from her hands. The nurse at the hospital's records desk was kind but hesitant. You're looking for files from 14 years ago? She asked, flipping through the computer system. That's ancient history, in digital terms. What was the name again? Laura Evans, Clara said, then added, her maiden name was Anna Collins. The nurse looked up, her eyebrows raising slightly. Anna Collins. That sounds familiar. She typed a few more keys. Hold on. Minutes passed. The nurse finally frowned. That's strange. There's a note in her file. Someone requested those records 2 weeks after her death. A private retrieval, signed off by an attorney named Victor Hale. Clara blinked. A lawyer? For what reason? Doesn't say, the nurse replied. But the signature line, there's an initial here. AG. Clara's breath caught. She froze, her fingers tightening around the edge of the counter. AG? She repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. The nurse nodded. Yeah. Why? Does that mean something? Clara forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maybe. Outside, she leaned against the hospital wall, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. The initials again. The same ones written on the back of her mother's photo. The same letters that now haunted her. She pulled the picture from her wallet and stared at it. AG, she whispered. Who were you? A gust of wind tore through the street, almost snatching the photo from her hand. She clutched it to her chest and looked up at the glass buildings glinting in the distance. Somewhere behind those walls, someone had known her mother, someone who still might. Across town, Alexander sat in his office, staring out over the skyline. His assistant hovered near the door, nervous. "Sir, your board meeting starts in 15 minutes. "Cancel it," Alexander said quietly. "Cancel, sir, it's the quarterly. I said cancel it, Jonah." The young man hesitated, then nodded and left, closing the door behind him. Alexander turned in his chair and opened his laptop. The company database flashed to life. Thousands of employees, past and present. He typed in Anna Collins. Nothing. He tried again. Laura Evans. One result appeared, dated years ago. Laura Evans, registered nurse, contract terminated due to illness. The photo attached was grainy, but unmistakable. Anna. Her hair shorter, her face thinner, but her eyes. The same eyes. He leaned back, the air leaving his lungs like a punctured tire. His phone buzzed again. Jonah's name flashed on the screen, followed by a text. "Sir, do you still want me to keep an eye on the waitress?" Alexander stared at the message for a long moment, before replying. "No. Tell me where she lives." He set the phone down and looked again at the photo of Anna. "You kept her hidden all these years," he murmured. "You even changed your name." He swallowed hard. "But you couldn't hide our daughter forever." The diner was loud, the kind of loud that made thinking impossible. Orders shouted, dishes clattering, coffee machines hissing. Clara stood behind the counter, pretending to wipe the same glass over and over again, just to steady her hands. She hadn't eaten since morning. She hadn't told anyone about what she found at the hospital. Her new job wasn't glamorous. It was survival. The pay was terrible, the tips worse, but at least it kept her lights on. Or it would have, if she didn't feel like she was being watched. 2 days had passed since her trip to the hospital, and a dark sedan had appeared across from her apartment. Always the same car. Always empty. When the doorbell above the diner chimed, she looked up. Her stomach dropped. Alexander Grant. He didn't belong in a place like this. Too polished, too self-contained. Every head turned as he walked in, and even the cook stopped mid-flip of a pancake. Clara froze behind the counter, clutching her apron. He spotted her instantly and crossed the floor, his shoes silent on the cracked tile. "Miss Evans?" he said softly, his voice low, almost careful. She forced a polite smile. "Sir, this isn't Le Mirabelle. We serve hash browns and burnt coffee here. What are you doing?" "I needed to see you." Her heart pounded in her chest. "Why?" He hesitated, as if weighing the truth in his hands. Then he said, "You remind me of someone I used to know." "That's not much of an apology," she said. "I didn't come to apologize." Her eyes narrowed. "Then we don't have anything to talk about." Before he could reply, her manager appeared from the kitchen. "Is there a problem here, Clara?" She shook her head quickly. "No, it's fine." The manager's gaze shifted to Alexander. His tone changed instantly. "Mr. Grant, like the Grant Holdings grant?" Alexander gave a curt nod. "Oh my God," the manager said, smiling nervously. "We're honored. Clara, make sure he's taken care of. On the house, of course." "Don't bother," Alexander said. "I won't stay long." He slipped a business card onto the counter. "If you ever want to talk about your mother, call me." Clara froze. Her mother. How do you... But before she could finish, he turned and walked out, the bell above the door jingling softly behind him. Her manager turned on her the moment he was gone. "What the hell was that?" He just came in. You don't talk to customers like that, especially not a man like him." "I didn't." "You're done here, Clara." The words hit like a slap. "You're firing me." "I'm protecting this place. I can't afford to lose a customer like that. Grab your things." She laughed once, hollow and bitter. "For what?" "For defending myself." "Out," he said, pointing toward the door. She untied her apron, dropped it on the counter, and walked out into the street. The afternoon light was harsh, the air thick with summer heat. She stood there, clutching the business card in her hand, the paper damp with sweat. On it, in clean black letters, Alexander Grant, CEO, Grant Holdings. And beneath that, a number. She crumpled the card and threw it into the trash can. But as she turned away, she hesitated. Her mother's name echoed in her head. How did he know? She glanced down the street. The same dark sedan was parked at the corner, engine idling. Someone was still watching, and this time she was done pretending not to notice. The night had teeth. Clara could feel them in the air as she hurried down the cracked sidewalk, the hum of the city fading into an uneasy silence. The sedan was still there, same one from before, idling at the end of the block with its headlights off. She stopped, pretending to check her phone, then turned sharply into a narrow alley. Her breath came fast. She cut through the maze of dumpsters and broken glass, came out on the next street, and ducked behind a delivery truck. When she looked back, the sedan rolled slowly past the alley mouth, then vanished around the corner. Clara pressed her palms against the cold metal of the truck, forcing herself to breathe. "You're losing it," she whispered. "Just nerves. Just nerves." But when she got home, she found proof she wasn't imagining things. Her apartment door, always sticky and hard to open, was ajar. She froze. Every instinct screamed to run, but she pushed it open instead. The room looked untouched, except for one thing. Her wallet, which she'd left on the table, lay open. The photograph of her mother was gone. Clara's knees went weak. She grabbed the edge of the counter to keep from falling. Someone had been inside. Someone who knew what they were looking for. Her phone buzzed on the counter, startling her. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A deep voice on the other end said quietly, "You shouldn't be afraid." Her pulse spiked. "Who is this?" "Not on the phone. You're being watched. Leave the apartment. Now!" The line went dead. She stood frozen for a few seconds, staring at the screen. Then she grabbed her bag and bolted. The stairwell reeked of old paint and mildew. Her footsteps echoed as she took them two at a time. She burst out into the street, panting, and nearly collided with someone standing at the corner. "Miss Evans!" It was him, Alexander Grant. She stepped back, furious and terrified. "What the hell is going on? Are you following me now?" He raised his hands, calm, deliberate. "No, but someone is." "That's not comforting," she snapped. "My place was broken into. My mother's picture is gone." He looked at her with something close to guilt. "I know. I sent someone to find it." Her mouth fell open. "You what?" "I needed to confirm something," he said quietly. "The woman in that photo, your mother, her name was Anna Collins. Isn't that right?" Clara's voice faltered. "How do you know that name?" Alexander took a step closer, his expression unreadable. "Because I knew her. A long time ago." Clara shook her head. "No, that's not possible." "She disappeared when she was 24, he said. "I looked for her for years. Your age, your eyes. You look just like her." "Stop it." "I can prove it," he insisted, his voice low but urgent. "Come with me, just for tonight. You'll be safe, and I'll show you what I've found." She wanted to scream at him, to tell him to leave her alone. But his eyes, sharp, exhausted, filled with something she couldn't name, made her pause. Lightning split the sky above them, thunder rolling seconds later. The dark sedan turned the corner again, headlights flaring. Alexander's voice dropped. "They're not with me. Get in the car, now." Clara hesitated only a heartbeat before he grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the curb. The sedan sped up, tires screeching as it veered closer. He shoved her into his black SUV, slammed the door, and hit the gas. As the city blurred past, Clara gripped the dashboard, heart pounding. She didn't know who to fear more, the people chasing them or the man sitting beside her who knew her mother's name. The rain hadn't stopped. It drummed against the windshield as Alexander's SUV tore through the city streets. Clara sat rigid in the passenger seat, staring at him, her hand clenched around the door handle. The city lights smeared across the wet glass, and every red light felt like a trap. "You've got about 10 seconds to start explaining," she said. "Because right now this feels like kidnapping." Alexander didn't look at her. "I'm trying to keep you alive. By dragging me into your car?" He exhaled slowly, gripping the wheel tighter. "You were being watched by a man named Victor Hale. He used to work for my father. He's dangerous." She turned toward him, disbelief written all over her face. "Your father? What does that have to do with me?" "Everything," he said. The SUV slowed as he turned into a quiet industrial district. He parked inside an underground garage beneath a glass office tower, his building. When the engine stopped, Clara could hear her own pulse. She looked around nervously. "Where are we?" "My office. It's the only place they won't dare touch." He got out, motioning for her to follow. Reluctantly, she did. They took a private elevator up 40 floors in silence. When the doors opened, they stepped into a dim, modern office. Marble floors, walls lined with framed cityscapes. But it wasn't the view that caught her eye. It was the framed photo on his desk. Her mother. The same smile, the same sparkle in her eyes, the same tilt of her head. Clara froze. "That's her. That's my mom." Alexander's voice was low. "It's Anna." She turned toward him. "You said you knew her. How?" He walked to a cabinet, opened it, and pulled out a small wooden box. From inside, he took an envelope yellowed with age. "I wasn't sure if I should show you this," he said, "but it's time." He handed her the letter. The handwriting was delicate, but unmistakable. Her mother's. Clara's throat tightened as she unfolded it. The ink had faded, but the words still breathed. "My dearest Alex, if you ever find this, it means I couldn't keep our promise. I left not because I stopped loving you, but because your world was built to destroy people like me. They told me to disappear, that if I stayed, you'd lose everything. I never wanted our daughter to grow up in that kind of darkness. If she ever comes to you, please protect her." The paper shook in Clara's hands. "Our daughter," she whispered. This can't be real." Alexander's voice cracked slightly. "It is." "No," she said, backing away. "You're saying you—" "What?" "That you're my father. That's insane." "I didn't know," he said quickly. "I thought she was dead. My father told me she died in an accident. I found her name again only weeks ago. I didn't even know you existed until I saw that photo." Clara's knees gave out, and she dropped into the nearest chair. "This is too much. You can't just appear out of nowhere and tell me my life was a lie." "I understand," he said softly. "But there's more. Victor Hale. He was the one who made her disappear. My father hired him to keep Anna away from me. When my father died, Hale took everything he could. Money, files, leverage. And now he knows about you." She looked up, tears mixing with anger. "You're saying I'm in danger because of something you and your father did?" Alexander nodded grimly. "Because of who you are." Clara's hands tightened around the letter. The words blurred through her tears. She looked him in the eye. "Then I want the truth. All of it. No more secrets." He nodded once. "Then we start tonight." And neither of them saw the shadowed figure standing across the street, watching the office lights flicker out. The rain had slowed to a whisper by the time Clara followed Alexander deeper into his office. The space was cold, cavernous, lined with glass walls that reflected their movements like ghosts trapped in mirrors. She kept her arms crossed, clutching her mother's letter like it might dissolve if she let go. He motioned toward a long mahogany table. "Sit down. There's something you should see." Clara hesitated. Why do I feel like every time you say that, my world gets worse? I'm not your enemy, he said quietly. Then stop acting like one. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. When he slid it across the table, a few photographs spilled out. Old surveillance shots, hospital documents, letters. One picture showed her mother outside a small clinic, holding a baby wrapped in a pink blanket. Clara stared at it, her voice trembling. That's me? Alexander nodded slowly. She sent this to my father. He kept it hidden. I only found it last week, while clearing out his estate. Clara picked up the photo, her hand shaking. Her mother's face glowed with pride, but there was fear in her eyes too, like she already knew what would come. I don't understand, Clara whispered. Why would your father care about her? About us? Because my family cared more about reputation than love, Alexander said, bitterness creeping into his tone. My father believed Anna was beneath us. He used his money to erase her from my life. So he just made her vanish. He nodded. He paid off doctors, lawyers, even her landlord. She was gone within days. I spent years trying to find her, but every lead went cold. When I finally stopped looking, I thought it was over. I built an empire to fill the hole she left. Clara's jaw clenched. And now I'm supposed to believe this fairy tale? That you're the grieving lover, and I'm the miracle daughter? His eyes met hers. I don't expect you to believe me. I'm asking you to look for the truth yourself. She laughed, sharp and humorless. You mean the truth that got her killed? She wasn't supposed to die, he said, almost pleading. I didn't know Hale was involved until after my father's death. That man made sure every trail disappeared, including hers. The lights flickered. A gust of cold air swept through the room. Clara turned toward the window. Movement, just a flicker of shadow. Did you see that? She asked. Alexander frowned. Stay here. He crossed the room, pressed a button on the desk, and the blinds lowered automatically. Security, he said into the intercom. Check the north side camera feed. Already on it, sir, came a voice from the other end. But you might want to see this yourself. Alexander's jaw tightened. He pulled up the live feed on his monitor. The camera outside showed the street below, and a figure standing across the road, wearing a long coat and hat, unmoving even in the drizzle. Clara's pulse raced. Who is that? Alexander leaned closer to the screen. The face was obscured, but something about the posture, the stillness, made his blood run cold. Victor Hale. You said he worked for your father, Clara whispered. What does he want from me? Leverage, Alexander said grimly. He's been trying to blackmail me for years. Now he's found something worth more than money. Me, Clara said, her voice flat. Alexander didn't deny it. The lights flickered again. This time, they didn't come back. The office fell into darkness. Clara's breath hitched. Alex? He reached for her hand. Don't move. A red light blinked on the wall camera. Static hissed. Then through the black glass, a faint reflection, two silhouettes, one inside, one just behind them. And Clara realized they weren't alone. For a moment, there was only darkness and the faint buzz of electricity struggling to come back to life. Clara's pulse pounded so loud it drowned out the rain outside. Somewhere near the window, a chair scraped against the floor. Alex, she whispered, someone's in here. I know, he said quietly. Stay behind me. He moved toward his desk, pulling open a drawer. She heard the metallic click of a gun being chambered. You carry a gun in your office? She hissed. He gave a humorless smile. I run a multi-billion-dollar company, Clara. Paranoia's part of the job. The emergency lights flickered back on, washing the office in a dim red glow. Shadows stretched like fingers across the glass walls. Clara's reflection stared back at her, pale, wide-eyed. But behind it, a shape moved. She turned. Alex! The window shattered before she could finish. A man in a dark coat crashed through, rolling onto the floor with the precision of someone who'd done it 100 times before. His face was half hidden beneath a black mask, but his eyes, cold and unblinking, locked on Clara. Alexander raised the gun. "Don't take another step." The man straightened slowly, gloved hands raised just enough to mock compliance. His voice was calm, almost polite. "You've been busy digging into graves, Grant." Clara's heart froze. "Who are you?" He smiled beneath the mask. "Someone who doesn't appreciate old secrets being exhumed." Alexander kept the gun steady. "Victor Hale, I should have known you'd come yourself." Victor's eyes glinted. "You never could resist trying to be the hero, could you? Tell me, does she know yet? Does she know what her father did to get rich?" Clara looked from one man to the other, confusion slicing through her fear. "What is he talking about?" "Don't listen to him," Alexander said sharply. Victor chuckled. "Of course not. It's easier that way. But she deserves the truth, doesn't she?" He stepped closer, ignoring the barrel aimed at his chest. "Your precious mother didn't just vanish. She ran. And not from me, from him." He pointed at Alexander. "That's a lie," Alexander said through gritted teeth. "Is it?" Victor tilted his head. "Ask him how many companies he ruined to build his empire. How many people he paid off to make problems disappear, including your mother's disappearance." Clara's voice shook. "Alex, tell me he's lying." "I didn't know," Alexander said, lowering the gun slightly. "I swear to you, Clara, I didn't know what my father did. I thought—" "You thought what?" Victor interrupted. "That the blood on your hands was someone else's problem?" Alexander fired. The sound exploded through the room. Victor ducked just in time. The bullet grazed the wall behind him. "Run!" Alexander shouted. Clara bolted for the elevator, her heart pounding so violently she could barely breathe. Behind her, she heard the crash of another shot, then a grunt of pain. She turned just long enough to see Alexander slump against his desk, blood blooming on his shoulder. "Alex!" she screamed. Victor grabbed her from behind, twisting her arm just enough to stop her fight. "You really do have her eyes," he whispered. "It's almost poetic." She kicked backward, hitting his shin, and broke free. Sprinting toward the stairwell, she shoved open the door and stumbled down flight after flight, her vision blurring. The alarm blared. Somewhere above, sirens wailed. She burst out onto the street, gasping in the wet night air. Her hands were shaking, her clothes torn. Behind her, the top floor of Grant Holdings burned red against the sky, alarms screaming like ghosts. And Clara realized the truth wasn't just buried in the past. It was hunting her now. Rain hammered the streets as Clara ran until her legs burned, weaving between parked cars and puddles that swallowed the neon light. She didn't stop until the sounds of sirens faded behind her. When she finally ducked into the narrow shelter of a bus stop, her lungs screamed for air. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. She almost ignored it, but answered with shaking hands. "Who is this?" A pause. Then Alexander's voice, rough and uneven. "Clara, it's me." Her heart leapt. "You're alive?" "Barely." A groan. "Bullet went clean through the shoulder. I'm at St. Jude's Hospital under an alias. Don't come here yet. It's not safe." "What do you mean, not safe? You got shot." "I'm fine," he lied. "But Hale's still out there, and he's after something bigger than us." Her hand tightened on the phone. "He said my mother ran from you. Is that true?" Silence stretched across the line. "Alex," she said, her voice cracking. "Did you do something to her?" "No," he said softly, "but my father did." The words landed like a knife. "What did he do?" "He ruined her," Alexander said. "She was going to expose him. My father was laundering money through medical charities. Your mother found proof when she worked at one of his hospitals. Hale was the fixer who made problems vanish. He was supposed to scare her off. Instead, she disappeared." Clara pressed her palm against the cold glass of the bus stop. "So she died because of your family?" "I didn't know," he said again, quieter this time. I swear if I had— She hung up. The rain drowned the sound of her own heartbeat. She stood there for a long time, soaked, trembling, replaying the words in her head. My father did. She pulled out the letter her mother had written and stared at the ink through the thin plastic bag she'd used to protect it. The words seemed to blur, the same ones that had once sounded like love, now heavy with warning. Protect her. From what? From who? A city bus roared by, spraying water across the sidewalk. When it passed, Clara noticed a figure standing across the street, half hidden under an umbrella, watching. Again. This time she didn't run. She walked straight toward him. Who are you? She demanded, her voice steady despite her fear. The man lowered the umbrella, revealing a kind, wrinkled face. Not Hale. Someone older. Clara Evans? She hesitated. Yes. He reached into his coat slowly, pulling out a small envelope sealed in wax. Your mother told me to give you this, if the time ever came. Clara's throat went dry. What time? He didn't answer, just pressed the envelope into her hand and walked away, disappearing into the rain before she could stop him. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. Inside was another letter, written in her mother's looping script. If you're reading this, it means they've found you. Don't trust anyone with the Grant name. Not even Alex. Go to the old house on Birchwood Lane. The answers are hidden beneath the floorboards. What you find there will tell you why I had to leave. Clara read the words twice, her heart slamming against her ribs. Birchwood Lane, their old home. She stuffed the letter into her coat pocket and turned back toward the main road. If her mother had hidden something there, it was time to find out what. Above her, thunder cracked across the skyline. Somewhere in the distance, an explosion of red lights flared against the clouds. The hospital. Her breath caught. Alex, she whispered. And then she ran, back into the storm, chasing the truth her mother had died to protect. The road to Birchwood Lane was lined with dead trees, their branches curling like claws against the bruised sky. Clara's cab rolled to a stop in front of a small, weather-beaten house that looked forgotten by time. The porch sagged, the paint peeled, and the mailbox leaned to one side, rusted shut. Yet something about it felt alive, like the air itself was holding its breath. She stepped out, her shoes sinking into the wet ground. The scent of old wood and rain filled her lungs. It had been years since she'd seen this place. She remembered flashes, a child's laughter, her mother humming in the kitchen, the smell of cinnamon and soap. Now all that warmth was gone, replaced by silence. Clara pushed open the door. It groaned in protest. Dust motes drifted through the thin light filtering in through cracked blinds. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing on a framed photo half buried under debris. Her mother, smiling on the front steps, the same steps now rotting beneath her feet. She swallowed hard and forced herself inside. The floorboards creaked as she walked through the narrow hallway. Her mother's letter echoed in her mind. Beneath the floorboards. She knelt in the center of the living room, tapping the wood with the handle of her flashlight. Hollow. Her hands trembled as she pried one plank loose, then another. Beneath the boards lay a small metal box, wrapped in oilcloth, its lock rusted but weak. She pulled it open. Inside were old papers, brittle with age. Medical records, financial transfers. A manila envelope labeled Project Sparrow. And tucked among them, a photo. Her breath hitched. It was her mother, standing beside a younger Alexander Grant. He wasn't in a suit but a lab coat, smiling at her like a man in love. But something was wrong. The background wasn't romantic or soft. It was sterile. A hospital. What the hell? Clara whispered. Another paper caught her eye. A birth certificate. Her name. But under father's name, the space was blank. Her fingers tightened around the edges. She dug deeper into the box until she found another photo. This one darker, grainier. Her mother sitting in a clinic bed, tubes in her arms, eyes half open. a date scrawled in the corner. 2 weeks before she disappeared. Tears welled in Clara's eyes. "Mum, what did they do to you?" Behind her, a floorboard creaked. She froze. "Who's there?" No answer. She stood slowly, scanning the room. The door was still closed, but a shadow shifted near the window. She turned the flashlight just as a hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. "Easy," a voice said. Deep, familiar. "Alex?" she gasped. He stepped into the light, his arm in a sling, face pale but determined. "I told you not to come here." "You followed me," she snapped. "I had to. Hale's men were at the hospital. He's 1 step behind us." She pointed to the open box. "You knew about this, didn't you?" He looked down, guilt flashing across his face. "Not all of it. I knew my father funded the hospitals, but I didn't know about Project Sparrow. Your mother tried to expose it." "What is it?" He met her eyes. "A genetic trial. Illegal. My father was experimenting on patients, on children. Your mother found proof. That's why she ran." Clara staggered back. "Children? You mean—" He nodded. "You were one of them, Clara. You're the reason she fled." Her stomach twisted. The walls felt like they were closing in. "No, you're lying." "I wish I was." Outside, the distant growl of an engine broke the silence. Headlights washed over the living room windows. Alexander turned toward the door, eyes narrowing. "He found us." And this time, there would be no running. The headlights outside cut through the cracks in the old walls, painting the room in streaks of white and shadow. Clara's pulse thundered in her ears as Alexander reached for the pistol tucked inside his coat. "Stay behind me," he said. Clara shook her head. "I'm done hiding." "Clara!" "No," she snapped. "You've been hiding for decades. My mother ran, your father lied, and now people are dying because of it. If I'm part of this, I deserve to know everything." Before he could answer, the front door burst open. 2 men in black raincoats stepped inside, water dripping from their sleeves. Their eyes were flat, their movements military. "Hands where we can see them," one barked. Alexander stepped forward, gun raised. "Tell Hale he's wasting his time." The man smirked. "Hale doesn't waste time. He collects debts." The second man moved toward the box on the floor, but Clara lunged first, grabbing the envelope marked Project Sparrow. She stuffed it into her jacket and bolted down the hallway. The sound of a gunshot ripped through the house, followed by another. "Clara, run!" Alexander shouted. She didn't need to be told twice. The back door slammed open from her kick, and she stumbled into the rain-soaked yard, mud splashing against her jeans. The documents pressed against her chest like a second heartbeat. She vaulted the broken fence and darted into the trees. Lightning flashed, brief, blinding. She caught a glimpse of a figure behind her. Not Alexander. Taller, faster. Her foot caught on a root, and she went down hard. Pain shot through her arm, but before she could move, a boot pinned her shoulder. "Going somewhere?" The voice was calm, almost amused. She twisted to look up. Victor Hale. His silver hair was plastered to his forehead, his suit soaked but immaculate beneath the rain. "Get off me," she hissed. He crouched beside her, pulling the envelope from her jacket. "You really are your mother's daughter. Brave, reckless, stupid. She died because of you." He smiled faintly. "She died because she trusted the wrong man." "You mean Alexander?" Hale chuckled. "Oh, no. I mean me." He stood, turning the envelope over in his hands. "Your mother thought she could stop what we started. She didn't realize she was part of it." Clara's stomach turned. "What are you talking about?" He glanced down at her, eyes glinting. Project Sparrow wasn't about curing disease. It was about building immunity, at the cost of others. Children were injected with prototype serums. Some died. A few didn't. Her voice broke. "You're saying I was one of them?" He nodded. "The only one who survived." She shook her head violently. "You're lying." "Ask your father," he said, and smiled as headlights appeared through the trees. Alexander's SUV crashed through the underbrush, engine roaring. Hale stepped back, raising his gun. The first shot hit the hood. The second shattered the windshield. Alexander ducked, swung the door open, and fired back. The night erupted in chaos. Gunfire, rain, splintered branches. Clara crawled toward the fallen envelope. Hale spotted her and fired again, but she rolled behind a tree, mud splattering her face. "Clara!" Alexander shouted. "I've got it!" she yelled back. She sprinted toward him, clutching the soaked papers, and dove into the SUV. Alexander hit the gas before the door closed, bullets pinging against the metal as they sped down the dirt road. Clara looked at him, breathless. Was he telling the truth? Was I part of that experiment? Alexander didn't answer. His face said enough. She stared out the window as the old house vanished behind them. "Then maybe," she whispered, "the real secret isn't about who my father is. It's about what I am." And beside her, Alexander couldn't deny it. The SUV roared down the empty highway, rain hammering the windshield in furious sheets. Clara sat in silence, staring at the torn envelope on her lap. The documents inside were soaked, but the ink still bled through. Medical charts, signatures, initials she recognized only too well. A.G. V.H., and one name scrawled in bold at the top. Anna Collins. She turned to Alexander. "You knew," she said quietly. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Not everything. You knew I wasn't just some waitress. You knew I was part of this experiment." "I didn't know until tonight," he said, voice hoarse. "When Hale mentioned Project Sparrow, I realized what my father had done. He used my money, my company, to hide the program. I was blind." Clara laughed bitterly. "Blind? That's convenient." Alexander's jaw tightened. "You think I wouldn't have stopped it if I'd known?" "I think you didn't want to know," she snapped. "People like you never do until it's too late." He didn't respond. The only sound was the rhythmic thud of the windshield wipers. Finally, he said, "Your mother tried to save you. She stole the data and disappeared. Hale hunted her for years. When he couldn't find her, he waited. For you to grow up. For a loose end to show itself." Clara stared at the passing blur of trees. "And now he's back to finish it." Alexander nodded grimly. "He wants the files. Without them, he can't prove the program existed. But with them, he can destroy what's left of my father's empire. And mine with it." "Good," she said coldly. "Maybe that's justice." He looked at her, eyes full of regret. "Justice doesn't bring people back." "Neither does money," she shot back. They drove in silence for several miles until the storm began to ease. The road stretched ahead, lonely and wet. Clara unfolded one of the documents, a medical analysis. Her name printed in the corner. Blood type, genetic code, experimental results. Words leapt out at her. Subject 07, accelerated healing response, phase 3 termination delayed. Her breath caught. "This can't be real." "It's real," Alexander said quietly. "That's why your mother ran. They wanted to keep testing you. She took you before they could." Clara felt sick. "So I'm some kind of lab rat that survived?" He shook his head. "You're the reason the program was shut down. You were proof it worked, and that it was dangerous." "Dangerous how?" He hesitated. "Your mother mentioned episodes, times when your body reacted unpredictably, fevers, hallucinations, your immune system turning on itself." Clara's mind flashed back to her childhood, nights of burning heat, of hospitals, of her mother holding her hand, whispering, "You're strong, baby. You'll be okay." She'd thought it was just illness. Now she knew better. Her voice broke. "She saved me. And you. You built a life off the company that almost killed me." "I've spent years trying to fix what my father broke," Alexander said. "Maybe this is my last chance to make it right." The SUV's headlights caught something ahead. A roadblock. Two black SUVs parked quintways across the highway. Alexander slammed the brakes. The tires screamed. "Get down!" he yelled. Gunfire shattered the windshield. Bullets sparked off the hood as figures emerged from the dark. Hale's men, silhouettes against the storm. Clara ducked, heart racing. "We're trapped!" Alexander grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the passenger door. "We run for the ditch. Follow me and don't stop." He kicked the door open. Rain lashed in. They sprinted into the mud, slipping, falling, crawling through the chaos as gunfire tore the night apart. Behind them, the SUV exploded, flames roaring high into the sky. Clara pressed her back against the ground, gasping for breath, her mother's envelope still clutched in her hand. And through the rain, she saw Hale watching from the road, smiling like a man who already owned her fate. The explosion painted the night orange. Metal screamed, flames roared, and the rain turned to steam around them. Clara's ears rang as she crawled through the wet grass, choking on smoke. Every breath burned. "Alex!" she shouted, but her voice was swallowed by the storm. A shadow moved beside her, grabbing her wrist. Alexander, blood streaked across his face, pulled her behind the wreckage of a fallen guardrail. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," she gasped. "You?" He grimaced, pressing a hand to his ribs. "I've been better." The wreck of the SUV burned bright, lighting up the roadblock ahead. Through the smoke, Hale's men advanced. 3, maybe 4 of them, weapons raised, moving in formation. "We can't stay here," Alexander said. "They'll circle around." "Where are we supposed to go?" He pointed toward the tree line. "There's a service tunnel past the ditch, old maintenance access. If we can make it there, they'll lose us." Clara looked at the flaming highway and then at him. "Let her. And what then? Keep running forever?" He met her eyes, calm but fierce. "Until I can end this." She wanted to argue, but another burst of gunfire cut through the rain. The bullets tore into the guardrail, sparks flying inches from her head. She ducked, her heart hammering. "Go!" he shouted. They sprinted down the embankment, slipping through the mud. The air stank of gasoline and rain. Clara could feel the heat from the burning car at her back, every nerve alive with panic. She stumbled, but kept going, following Alexander as he kicked open a metal grate hidden behind overgrown weeds. "In here," he said. She dropped into the tunnel first, splashing into ankle-deep water. He followed, slamming the grate shut behind them. The darkness closed in, like a living thing. They moved quickly through the narrow concrete passage, their flashlights cutting thin paths through the dark. The sound of footsteps echoed faintly above, the men searching the woods. After several minutes, Clara slowed. "They'll find us. They always do." "Not tonight," Alexander said, but his voice carried no conviction. She turned her light on him. "Tell me the truth, Alex. Why didn't you tell me sooner? You knew Hale was still out there." He stopped walking. "Because I didn't know how to protect you. Every move I've made since the night your mother disappeared. It's been about control, about keeping the past buried." Clara stared at him. "And look how well that worked." He winced but didn't argue. "Your mother once said the truth was the only cure for this family. I didn't listen. I thought I could fix it with money, with silence. But you can't buy redemption." Something in his tone broke her anger. For the first time, he didn't sound like a billionaire or a strategist. He sounded like a man who had lost everything. Before she could speak, her flashlight flickered. Then it went out. "Alex?" "Stay close." They moved by touch now, following the faint draft of air that promised an exit. Somewhere ahead, light glimmered weakly, a rusted hatch leading up to the surface. Alexander pushed it open and climbed out first, then reached back for her hand. She grasped it and pulled herself into the open air. They were in a junkyard on the outskirts of the city. Rows of twisted metal stretched into the dark, a labyrinth of broken machines, and silence. For a brief moment, it almost felt safe. Then a voice echoed from the shadows. "You really thought you could run, Alex?" Hale stepped into the flickering light, rain glinting off his gun. And this time, he wasn't alone. The smell of rust and oil hung thick in the air. Rain dripped from the skeletal frames of crushed cars, tapping rhythmically against metal like a ticking clock. Clara froze beside Alexander, her soaked hair clinging to her face. Hale stood 20 feet away, his gun steady, flanked by 2 men dressed in black. Alexander stepped in front of her, voice calm but cold. "Let her go, Hale. This is between you and me." Hale smirked. "Everything's between you and me, Alex. You just keep dragging new ghosts into it." His eyes flicked toward Clara, including her. Clara's pulse spiked. "You killed my mother," she said. Hale tilted his head. "Killed? No. She made her own choices. I simply gave her reasons to make them." "Why?" she demanded. "Why destroy her life?" He gave a small laugh. "Because she was brave enough to steal what wasn't hers. Those files your mother took, Project Sparrow, those were worth billions. She wanted to expose the truth. I wanted to preserve the future." "By experimenting on children?" Alexander snapped. "By rewriting humanity," Hale countered. "You were too blinded by guilt to see it. But your father understood. He had the vision, the resources, and the will to make it real. You had sentiment. That's why you failed him." Alexander raised his weapon. "He failed you. He built a monster, and you became its face." Hale smiled, unbothered. "Maybe. But monsters don't die easy." The sound of boots crunching gravel echoed as Hale's men fanned out, weapons ready. Alexander leaned toward Clara, voice low. "When I move, run. Head for the far gate. I'm not leaving you. You have to." "Alex, Gontozo," he barked, stepping forward and firing the first shot. The junkyard erupted. Gunfire ripped through the air, ricocheting off steel and shattered glass. Clara dropped behind a pile of car doors, covering her head as bullets sparked inches from her face. She peeked out. Alexander crouched behind an old sedan, firing methodically, one shot after another. Hale moved like smoke between the wrecks, his men closing in fast. Clara spotted a wrench lying in the mud beside her. Desperate, she grabbed it and crawled toward the nearest attacker. The man rounded the corner, aiming his rifle. Too slow. Clara swung with everything she had, the wrench slamming into his wrist. He yelled, dropping the gun. She kicked him hard in the knee and grabbed the weapon. "Clara!" Alexander shouted. "Get to cover!" But she was already running toward him, gun clutched tight, adrenaline drowning out fear. Hale's second man spotted her and fired. The shot missed by inches, sparking off the hood of a car. Clara dove behind a rusted pickup, breath ragged. Then came the silence, the sharp, sudden kind that means the fight isn't over, just waiting. Hale's voice echoed across the yard. "You can't win this, Alex. You never could. You're protecting a secret that was meant to change the world." Alexander's voice was steady. "The world doesn't need saving by people like you." Clara stood slowly, her gun trembling in her hands. "You said I was part of your experiment," she called out. "Then tell me, Hale, what did you make me?" Hale's laughter drifted through the rain. "I didn't make you, dear girl. I designed you." The words hit her like ice. "You're lying." "Am I? Why do you think you survived what others couldn't? Your mother tried to keep you human. She failed." Alexander's shout cut through the storm. "Don't listen to him!" But Clara could barely hear. Her mind buzzed with fragments, hospital lights, childhood fevers, her mother's whisper, "You're strong, baby. You'll be okay." Her grip on the gun tightened. Lightning flashed, illuminating Hale's face through the maze of wreckage. And for the first time, Clara realized she wasn't afraid. She was furious. The lightning faded, But Clara still saw Hale's face burned into her vision, smiling, calm, confident, the face of a man who'd played God and never regretted it. Rain poured harder now, washing blood and dirt into dark rivers between the crushed cars. Alexander moved closer to her, breathing hard, one hand clutching his bleeding side. "Don't listen to him," he said. "He's twisting the truth like he always does." Hale's voice carried through the junkyard. "You want truth? Ask him who signed the funding papers for Project Sparrow." Alexander froze. Clara turned to him slowly. "What is he talking about?" "It's not what you think," Alexander said quickly. "Then tell me what it is," she shouted, stepping back. "Did you sign them? Did you help create this?" Alexander's eyes dropped. Rain rolled down his face like tears. "I didn't know what the project was then. My father said it was medical research, gene therapy, disease prevention. I didn't ask questions. I was young, stupid, and desperate to prove myself." Hale laughed, a dark sound that echoed against the metal. "He funded every drop of blood we spilled. Without his money, you wouldn't even exist." Clara's hands shook. "You're lying." But Alexander didn't deny it. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew and you let her die." "I swear to you," he said, voice raw. "I didn't know what they did to her until after she was gone." "Clara, please, your mother, she loved me. I loved her. I never wanted this." Hale stepped out from behind the wreckage, gun still in hand. "Touching. But love doesn't erase history. She stole from me. You funded me. And now, both of you are standing in the ashes of what you built." Clara aimed her weapon at him, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "You're going to pay for what you did to her." He smiled. "Do you even know what you are, Clara? Your DNA isn't ordinary. You're a cure, yes, but also a weapon. Why do you think your mother kept you hidden? She was terrified you'd be used." Her finger hovered over the trigger. "You're insane." Hale's tone softened, almost gentle. "Am I? Think about it. How many times have you been hurt and healed faster than you should? How many illnesses have passed you by?" Flashes of memory hit her. The childhood fevers that vanished overnight, the cut on her arm that sealed in hours, the doctor who once called her a miracle. "No," she said, shaking her head. "That doesn't mean—" "It means exactly what it sounds like," Hale interrupted. "You are the success story, the one who worked." Alexander lunged forward, gun raised. "You won't touch her again." Hale fired first. The bullet grazed Alexander's arm. He stumbled, but didn't fall. Clara screamed, firing back. Her shot caught Hale in the shoulder, spinning him into the side of a crushed car. He groaned, pressing a hand to the wound, but still smiled. "You see, even now, you don't miss." Clara advanced, gun steady. "I should kill you." "You could," Hale said, smirking through the pain. "But I'm the only one who can tell you the rest of what she did." Clara hesitated. "What are you talking about?" He met her gaze, blood dripping down his sleeve. "Your mother didn't just hide you. She finished the formula, with your blood. Somewhere, someone else is holding it. Find that, and you'll know who she really was." Before she could answer, a spotlight cut through the rain, sirens in the distance. Hale laughed softly. "Looks like we've run out of time." He dropped a small smoke grenade at their feet. It hissed, flooding the yard with white fog. When it cleared, he was gone. Alexander limped to her side. "Clara, are you okay?" She didn't look at him. Her voice was quiet, trembling with rage and disbelief. "He said my blood was a cure," she whispered. "Then maybe it's time I use it to end this, for both of us." And for the first time, Alexander didn't know if she meant saving the world or burning it down. Dawn bled across the horizon as the storm finally broke. The junkyard was quiet now, littered with shell casings, burnt metal, and the fading echo of everything they had just survived. Clara sat on the hood of a ruined car, soaked and shivering, her hands still trembling around the gun she hadn't let go of. Alexander stood a few feet away, his shirt torn and bloodied, his expression hollow. The police sirens had passed, too far away to help, or too late to matter. Clara broke the silence first. He said my mother finished the formula, that she used my blood. Is that true? Alexander didn't answer right away. He looked at the rising sun, the light cutting sharp across his tired face. Yes. I found the same hint in the hospital records years ago, before they disappeared. She must have discovered how to stabilize it, but she never told anyone. Because she didn't trust you, Clara said. He winced but didn't argue. Because she didn't trust anyone. She slid off the car and stepped closer. If she used my blood, then that formula is still out there, which means Hale isn't done. Alexander nodded slowly. He's too invested to stop. If he can find the final serum, he'll sell it to the highest bidder. Governments, militaries, people who'd use it for control, not healing. Clara let out a bitter laugh. A miracle in one hand, a weapon in the other. Just another business deal. He looked at her then, really looked at her. You don't understand. What you are, what she created, you could save millions. Or destroy them, she said quietly. Depends on who's holding the syringe. Alexander stepped closer, lowering his voice. That's why we have to find it first. We? She gave him a hard look. You keep saying we like I'm supposed to trust you after everything I've learned. I don't need you to trust me, he said. I need you to survive. For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain had stopped completely, leaving only the soft crackle of burning debris. Clara looked down at her hands. Mud, blood, ash. She felt like she was disappearing into her mother's story, piece by piece. When I was little, she said softly, she used to tell me stories before bed, about a bird that could heal anything with its song. But every time it healed someone, it lost a feather. By the end, it had nothing left of itself. She met his eyes. Now I get it. She was talking about herself. Alexander's throat tightened. And she'd do it again, if it meant protecting you. She shouldn't have had to. He stepped closer, careful, his voice almost breaking. Clara, listen to me. You can end this. Everything Hale's done, everything my father built, you can undo it. But if you go after that serum, you'll be hunted until you die. She squared her shoulders. Then I guess it's my turn to run. Before he could stop her, she turned and started walking toward the edge of the junkyard. The early light painted her in gold and grey, a ghost of her mother in every step. Alexander called after her. Where will you go? She didn't turn around. Where she went before me. Birchwood. The old clinic. If she hid the formula, it'll be there. He watched her disappear into the haze, torn between pride and dread. For a long time, he stood in the wreckage alone, the weight of 2 generations pressing on his chest. Then his phone buzzed. A message, no sender ID. He opened it. A single sentence glowed on the screen. You can't protect her, Alex. The cure belongs to me. Hale was still alive. Alexander looked toward the road Clara had taken, jaw tightening. He had already lost Anna once. He wouldn't lose their daughter, too. The road to Birchwood twisted through the woods like a scar, half swallowed by fog and memory. Clara drove a borrowed pickup she'd found abandoned near the highway, its engine coughing protest at every turn. The radio was dead, her phone battery dying, but the silence suited her. She was heading back to where it all began, to the place her mother had once worked, and the place she feared might hold her ending. The old Birchwood clinic sat at the edge of the forest, grey and hollow, its windows like blind eyes. It had been condemned years ago, but even in ruin, it still carried the sterile smell of antiseptic and secrets. Clara parked near the gate, cut the engine, and stepped out. Her boots crunched on the gravel as she pushed the door open. The air inside was thick with dust and decay. Wallpaper peeled like dead skin from the walls. She walked slowly down the corridor, flashlight in hand, her breath fogging in the cold. She remembered flashes, her mother's hand guiding her through these halls, a kind nurse giving her candy after a test, the soft hum of machines she never understood. And now, those memories felt poisoned. The door to the old lab was sealed with a rusted chain. Clara found a loose piece of metal and used it to pry the lock. The chain fell away with a clatter. Inside, the air was colder still. Old cabinets lined the walls, papers scattered like dried leaves. A toppled file cart revealed stacks of folders stamped with a faded emblem. Grant Biomedical Division. She whispered to herself. So this is where it started. She began to search. Most of the papers were useless, patient charts, expired licenses, but then she found a locked drawer labeled Restricted. It took 3 kicks, but the metal bent. Inside was a single glass vial, half filled with a pale blue liquid. A small tour read, Sparrow. Final sequence. Her hands shook as she held it up to the light. Mom, she whispered, you actually did it. Behind her, a voice said softly, She didn't finish it, Clara. You did. Clara spun, flashlight beam cutting through the dark. Alexander stood in the doorway, his face pale, his arm still in a sling. She exhaled, half relief, half anger. You followed me. I told you I wouldn't let you do this alone. This isn't your choice anymore, she said. This formula, my mother's blood, my blood, it's not yours to protect. He stepped closer. If you release it, Hale wins. He'll twist it, weaponize it. Millions could die. Then what's the alternative? She demanded. Let him bury it again. Pretend none of this happened. Before he could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hall. Slow, deliberate, metallic. Clara's stomach dropped. He's here. Alexander turned, gun drawn. But it was too late. Hale's voice carried from the shadows. You're both terrible at hiding. He emerged from the darkness, a pistol in one hand, his other gripping a bleeding wound in his side. His smile was thin, but alive. You found it, I see. The world's most valuable secret, sitting in a dusty drawer. Clara held the vial behind her. You're not getting this. Oh, I think I am, Hale said, because you don't have it in you to destroy it. She met his eyes, trembling but unyielding. You don't know me. He raised the gun. No, but I knew your mother, and she never pulled the trigger either. The air between them thickened. Alexander took a step forward. If you want it, you'll have to go through me. Hale smiled faintly. I was hoping you'd say that. Then came the sound of a single click, metal against metal, right before the lights exploded into sparks. And in that instant, Clara disappeared into the dark, the vial clenched in her hand. The power surge plunged the clinic into total darkness. The smell of ozone filled the air, mingled with dust and the copper tang of old blood. Clara pressed her back against the cold wall, gripping the vial tight enough to hurt. Somewhere down the hall, Hale's footsteps echoed, measured, confident. Clara. His voice sang through the blackness. You're wasting your time running. You're holding the key to everything your mother died for. Don't make her death meaningless. She forced her breathing to slow. She died because of you. Hale chuckled softly. She died because she refused evolution. You could finish what she started. You could save lives, or end disease itself. Isn't that worth a little blood? Alexander's voice cut through the dark. You talk about saving lives, but all you've ever done is destroy them. A gunshot cracked. Sparks burst from a wall panel near Clara's head, showering her with debris. She ducked low, crawling toward the faint light leaking from the stairwell at the far end of the corridor. Alex, she hissed. Go, I've got the formula. No, he shouted back. He's here for you. I know, she bolted, her boots splashing through shallow puddles. The building trembled as another shot echoed. She burst through a set of swinging doors into what used to be the main lab, rows of overturned tables, shattered beakers glittering on the floor like ice. She darted behind a cabinet, chest heaving. The vial glowed faintly in the dim light, a haunting blue, alive somehow, pulsing like it remembered her blood. Then Hale's silhouette filled the doorway. "You can't hide forever." "I don't plan to," she said. He stepped inside, gun raised, scanning the shadows. "You think your mother saved you. But she doomed you, Clara. That serum isn't salvation. It's dependency. You'll never live without it. Your cells need it now. You're already addicted to your own cure." Her stomach twisted. "You're lying." "Am I? How many nights have you woken up feverish, shaking, seeing things? She used you as her final test, your proof she failed." The words slammed into her chest. She wanted to deny it, but memories surfaced. Nights of burning fever, the hospital visits, her mother's voice, whispering through tears. "Just hold on, baby. Just one more day." Clara raised her gun. "You don't know anything about her." Hale smiled. "I know she begged for mercy before she died." The rage came fast and hot. She stepped out of the shadows and fired. The bullet grazed Hale's arm, knocking the gun from his hand. He grunted, then lunged, tackling her into a table. Glass shattered around them. The vial slipped from her grasp, rolling across the floor. Both of them reached for it, scrambling. Hale's fingers brushed it first, but then Alexander appeared, slamming into him from the side. They crashed into a cabinet, fighting for the weapon, for breath, for control. "Get the vial!" Alexander shouted. Clara grabbed it and backed away. The sound of struggle filled the lab, grunts, glass breaking, the dull thud of fists. She saw Hale raise a shard of metal, swinging it toward Alexander's chest. Without thinking, she hurled the vial against the ground. It shattered. The blue liquid hissed as it spread across the floor like fire, reacting to the air. Hale froze, eyes wide. "What have you done?" "Ended it," she whispered. The chemical fumes caught the sparks from the broken wires above. In an instant, the room ignited, blue flames racing along the walls. Alexander dragged Hale back, but the man twisted free, vanishing into the firestorm. Clara coughed, vision blurring, as Alexander pulled her toward the exit. They stumbled into the rain outside, collapsing on the cracked steps of the clinic as the building burned behind them. She looked back, tears streaking her soot-stained face. "It's gone. All of it." Alexander squeezed her hand. "Not all. She's still here. In you." Clara stared at the flames. "Then maybe that's enough." But behind the roar of fire, a single silhouette moved through the smoke. Hale, limping, alive, and still smiling. The fire raged through the night, devouring the Birchwood clinic, until it was nothing but steel bones and ash. Clara sat on the hood of a rusted ambulance, wrapped in a torn blanket. The sirens long faded in the distance. The rain had returned, hissing softly against the ruins, turning embers into smoke. Alexander stood beside her, his arm bound in a strip of cloth. His face was streaked with soot, his eyes hollow but steady. "You destroyed it," he said quietly. Clara nodded. "Every formula, every sample. It's gone." He looked at the ruins. "You just erased $1 billion secret." "I erased a weapon," she replied. "There's a difference." The wind carried the faint crackle of what remained of birchwood. Somewhere deep inside, metal groaned and collapsed, the last echo of a lie that had lasted decades. Alexander turned toward her. "You know this isn't over. Hale survived." "I know. He'll come for you again." Clara stared into the flames. "Then he'll find someone who's not running anymore." Silence stretched between them. The rain softened. In its rhythm, she heard her mother's voice again, gentle, steady, full of warmth that refused to die. "You're stronger than you think, baby. Don't let them turn your heart to stone." Clara blinked hard, her chest tightening. "She wanted to fix the world," she said softly. "But maybe the world didn't need fixing. Maybe it just needed people brave enough to tell the truth." Alexander nodded slowly. "She believed in you." She'd be proud. She'd be furious, Clara said with a tired smile. I just burned down her life's work. He managed a weak laugh. Yeah, but you also saved it. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the storm fade. When the first hint of dawn touched the horizon, Alexander pulled something from his coat pocket. A small, charred locket, its metal warped but intact. I found this in the lab, he said, handing it to her. Clara opened it carefully. Inside, beneath the cracked glass, was a photo. Her mother holding her as a baby, both smiling. The image was burned around the edges but still visible. She traced her mother's face with her thumb. Guess the fire couldn't take everything. Alexander watched her for a long moment. What will you do now? Clara closed the locket and slipped it around her neck. Start over. Live a life she'd actually want me to live. Maybe I'll open that cafe she used to talk about. She always said the world needs more kindness and caffeine. He smiled faintly. And you? She asked. Alexander looked out at the smoking ruins. I've spent my whole life cleaning up my father's mess. Maybe it's time to stop being a grunt and start being a person. Maybe it's time we both stopped running from ghosts. He nodded. You'll have to disappear for a while. Change your name. Hale won't stop hunting what he can't own. She met his eyes. Then I'll make sure he never owns anything again. As the sun rose, Clara stood, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. The smoke glowed gold in the light, and for the first time, the weight in her chest began to lift. She turned to Alexander. You know, Mom used to tell me about a bird that healed people by giving away its feathers. By the end, it had nothing left. But it was finally free. Alexander smiled. Sounds familiar. Clara took one last look at the ruins, the locket warm against her heart. Yeah, but this time, the bird lives. They walked away together, down the long, wet road, the dawn stretching out before them. And behind them, in the smoke and ruin, the last spark of birchwood finally died, taking its secrets with it, forever. So that's it, my friends. The story has come full circle. If you're still here right now, it means something in Clara's journey touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it reminded you of how heavy the truth can be, or how powerful forgiveness really is. Her story wasn't just about science or secrets. It was about courage. The courage to stop running, to face pain, and to choose compassion over revenge. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "The obstacle is the way." That's exactly what Clara learned. That pain isn't just something to survive. It's something that shapes who we become. Every scar, every loss, every burned bridge can also be a beginning. Healing doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like letting go. If her story stirred something in you, don't let it fade away. Take a breath. Forgive someone, maybe even yourself. Because as Seneca wrote, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs a little light tonight. Tap that like button, subscribe, and stay with us. There are more stories waiting to heal something inside us all.